What's going on, everyone? This is a podcast I did for emerging photographers with Steven over at Artisans and Trade. It runs about 20 minutes, and after that it gets cut off because the camera work got a little shoddy. If you want to listen to the whole thing, leave a comment below and I'll make sure to get that in front of you. Thanks for watching.
Can you talk about your old work versus your new work and how that immersion into Platon's world kind of shifted that old work into the new style? I say that because I've seen photographs of yours, I think on a Flickr account, and your style then is completely different from your style now.
Yeah.
And earlier we were talking about style, identity as a photographer, and what you bring as a vision to your work and portfolio. What was the kind of impetus for you to shift that style from this? I think everyone starts out with if you're in fashion, you have this like soft-ish, not very contrasted look. But your work right now is like punch in the face.
Oh, thank you. Love a good punch in the face.
It really is.
It's not something that I'm like, okay, this is going to be my style now. I firmly believe your visual signature only comes through repetition and through doing it. My number one piece of advice to anyone who is a shooter or is a photographer is you're not shooting enough. I mean, I tell Platon that all the time. You're not shooting enough. I mean, he's got it down, but it just comes from repetition and then learning what you like, what you don't like, and then leaning into that and then shying away from what you don't like and then letting that kind of idea home. You know, it's funny because I always got flack from people saying, there's too much contrast. This is hit too hard. I don't like this. It looks like a movie poster.
Right.
And then when I started working for Platon, to hear people from Wired magazine or Men's Health UK say the exact same thing to him, I was like, this is great. He's like, if people don't like your work or people are saying you need to, then that means you're doing something right. You should lean into it. He did this job once with Cillian Murphy. He was shooting Cillian Murphy, and he was doing it for a UK magazine. He sent them the contact sheets. He kind of does like a little bit of a move and then sends the contact sheets off, but it's not like the full wow.
Gotcha.
And they loved it, but then when he sent back the full retouched image, if there's too much contrast, can you bring it back? And what he said was so beautiful. He goes, you didn't hire me to do what you want. You hired me to do what I do. He never worked for the magazine again, but I thought that was a beautiful sentence.
That's fire.
But it takes such balls to be able to do that.
Right.
Especially if you're a young emerging photographer.
Right.
Someone says, can you do this? Most people are like, okay, let's stop. I'm guilty.
Don't hire that guy again.
Yeah. Cool to see him stand his ground like that.
Yeah. Can you talk about finding a niche? Funny enough, a preface into you answering a question. You had an open call for people to send in their websites because you were making a YouTube content, YouTube like 5-minute video. I think it was like 40-something minutes. Actually. Yeah, a longer version, but
a little too long.
Yeah. But you asked people to send in their websites to basically give them quick critiques, kind of like a portfolio review, but very rapid fire. But from an online perspective, just not necessarily looking at the work, but how you present yourself online.
Yeah. And
I think you combed through my website in like a good minute. And that, I think you did that I watched the video on Saturday morning, and that whole weekend, my plans were shot. I did nothing else but like gut my whole website, re-edit photos that I sat on, and like try to fucking like make it better.
That's so important. How often do people do that? Just take a step back, look at their work, reshuffle it, it.
Not often.
Yeah, my whole thing as an emerging photographer was always shoot it, love it, throw it away, never thinking about it again. But it's crazy. You spend so much time, so much effort.
Yeah.
So many people collaborated on it. You're just gonna throw it away.
Yeah.
I think that's such an odd way to go about your practice.
Right.
But then to revisit it, shape it, hone it. But I guess you never see me revisit something I shot 10 years ago because I guess it's like you have this learning curve.
Yeah.
And then once you hit like an upper echelon level, that learning curve kind of stays. You just kind of find your sweet spot, that sweet spot. But if you're in that learning curve, what do? Do you throw it away? Do you stay with it?
Yeah.
I feel like I was still learning, and I did so many portfolio reviews. I'd pay people to do it. I would ask photo editors, and it would always be the same kind of things. Like you're showing too much work. There's too many photos of this one person. It was like very singular. And then it's when you hear it said 20 times, it's easy to see it in other people's work.
Right.
I find it harder to criticize my own work, but I can criticize other people's work.
But it's true. I think you don't see the flaws in what you're doing, but you can easily spot it in somebody else.
But at the same time, I could nitpick one photo of mine forever.
Right.
Like forever.
Right.
Always find something wrong with it. Not a healthy way to live, though.
I think when you're at the level you're at with retouching, I think that's kind of part of the course where you're like, I can always make this better. But I share that because that really allowed me to take a step back and say, are these photos worth being on this website? And so much came down, and going through that process allowed me to really think about, who am I as a photographer? And I thought I was a documentary photographer.
Existential crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I thought documentary was the main work that I wanted to be like front and center. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that 1 minute, just like rapid fire, do this, take that down, don't do this, made me revisit my identity as a photographer. And I was like, I don't think documentary is what I want to be making money with. I think documentary is something that it's also tough if you don't have a name to yourself. So I think that, I'm just saying, like the 1 minute feedback made me rethink everything. So in saying that, I want to talk about niches as a photographer, getting into what type of photography one, or how to narrow down and like niche down into the type of photography you really want to hone in on. How did you land on? Is it fashion photography, editorial?
I just love people. To this day, I still love meeting a stranger, having a very intense, short relationship with them, and then never seeing them again. But then taking an amazing profile and portrait of them that they can have for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And even if they don't like the photo, I know that it's going to age beautifully.
Yeah.
And you're going to revisit it in 5 years, and you'll like it again. It's happened to me so many times. I don't like the photo. I'm like, I look. I just shot Joe List, the comedian, the other day. He goes, love the photos. Hate myself. Love
That's
the
his
photos.
brand.
Yeah.
That's his thing.
But you get small instances of that when I get hired for a private sitting or something like that, and they go, I don't really like the photos. And then 2 years later, they go, can you shoot me again? It's like, that's very interesting. But the niche is found by doing what you love. If you're on set and you love what you're doing, then you're doing something right. If you're on set making money and you don't like what you're doing, then that's not your niche. Don't follow the money. You got to follow your gut. Marina Abramovich said, you got to listen to your stomach, everything in the stomach. And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Follow your gut.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's you say that. I've been like very interested in music photography lately, and music has always been a huge like component of my life. Like
live music or musicians?
Musicians, just musicians in general, portraiture, album artwork, and things like that. That's like the lane that I think I'd like to head in. But that's always been a thing. But I don't think we do enough self-auditing to like think of like, what am I really interested in? I know the documentary thing is a passion of mine. I love journalism.
You do that for free, right?
That's my personal work.
Yeah.
So like, when I have the funds to do it, it's my personal work. The interest, my photography represents two things that I care deeply about: music, journalism. And I think that's something that we all need to do. We're really self-auditing and figuring out what are my interests. You love people. It's not a surprise that you shoot portraits. And then that portraiture translates into brand work and all that good stuff.
Well, it started that I wanted to be a DP and just shoot like aesthetically pleasing things like music videos. And then I figured fashion would be very close to that.
Yeah.
But then I fell out of love with fashion because of how short the trends are and how you kind of have to be on it. It's not really timeless. You look at anything from the 90s with some exceptions of like Peter Lindbergh or like Helmut Newton, but like fashion that some fashion that was shot in the 90s, like that really posty look, like that's gone forever. But you look at Yusef Karsh or some of these great portrait photographers that will stand the test of time. And it's always like, what will stand the test of time? What is like not dated?
Right.
And what will last forever? But that's how, like when I worked for Platon, I would set up these shoots, and on a Saturday, I'd be like, well, you gotta work today. So I'm like, oh, I gotta cancel the shoot. So that's how I kind of slid into shooting women and models, because it would just be me and them and maybe a makeup artist.
Yeah.
And it would just be very simple, very fast. And I always thought if I could shoot nudes are interesting because it's like the best photographers on the planet who shoot nudes, they don't have like a crazy stylist or crazy sets. They're just doing this classic timeless nude. So I figure if I could do that, I would be on the level with these guys. Then the Me Too thing kind of happened. That kind of fell out of popularity because 10 years ago, it's very popular. But then I started doing the same thing with just whenever I would travel or wherever I would go, you'd meet artists, painters, other photographers, musicians, like you said. Those are the best people to collaborate with because they understand where you're coming from. And then also shooting people that, I love shooting people that don't like being in front of the camera because they treat that like an exercise. If I can make you feel comfortable and you look good, then I can make anyone look good.
That's true.
Especially someone who's a musician or a celebrity or anyone like that. And then that will translate into advertising work. That's why I got all these jobs with Verizon, because I could shoot real people. People that are like, this is my good side. And like, no, it isn't. That's all the good side.
I love that. Can you talk about, I love that you focus a lot on habits of a photographer in your YouTube series, I call it a series, but it's just videos. You focus a lot about on habits and how to hone your skill set as a photographer, on the technical aspect and as well as the people aspect, and then there's the retouching aspect. Talk about what a photographer that's starting up should really hone in on to become as good as they can be. The soft skills, the hard skills, all that good stuff.
Yeah, the technical side has to be second nature. You can't. I used to shoot a lot of weddings when I was in high school, and that's where I got so good with the camera. You could just walk into a room and realize what the exposure settings would be. That's just how fast you get with that. And once you get that down, it was another Platon learned thing, because when he shoots, I mean, he's just shooting someone on white. It's the most simple setup ever. It's one light on white. That's it. But when you're shooting a president and you only have 30 seconds, or you're shooting Chavez at the G Summit series and you only have 2 or 3 frames, if that goes wrong, your whole shoot is done. So it's how can you get it into this method, this rhythm, this workflow that is just so second nature, because anyone who shoots realizes something's going to go wrong. We're just professional troubleshooters. That's really all we are. So if you can get the same routine down, it doesn't mean stick to the same line, doesn't mean do what Platon does, but it means stick to the same routine so you have a workflow, you have comfortableness every time you do it, that will allow you to just focus on humanity, that human side of things. If I'm fumbling with a camera, I can't connect with you. So that has to be so polished and honed that it's in the back of your head. Having an assistant, it also helps because they can worry about that technical side, but it has to be tight. Because if you're doing something, I love shooting people that I just go into their space with no idea what I'm walking into and then try to make a great portrait. I think it's such a phenomenal exercise. Because if something goes wrong on set of an actual job or a commissioned shoot, then you're ready. You've been there before. You don't panic. It's a great exercise. Doesn't always work.
But
it
works most of the time.
And when it doesn't work, you know why it doesn't work. And then you can think about what I can do next time to prevent that. I always think the best lesson is a mistake. So if you do mess up, then you can at least look at it from a new angle, approach it differently the next time. And pretty sure that's called growth. Right.
How do photographers who are coming up build undeniable portfolios?
If they know, tell me. No, it's just, it's really about, like I said, you just gotta shoot more and just develop that visual signature and hone it so much, but to create something really, really strong, you can't do that shit by yourself. It does require collaboration. So the more you collaborate with people, the better you are at communicating. I always think of a photo shoot as like a first date or like a job interview.
It's funny you say that. Paul literally just said the same thing. First date.
Well, yeah.
Portfolio reviews and like,
I just think it's like the air is so fragile. You could come in and say something stupid and it's ruined, just like a first date or a job interview. Yeah. It's like you're walking on eggshells. You have to be able to connect immediately, make that person feel comfortable. And that's difficult. You kind of have to step outside. If you throw a camera in my hand, I feel like it's almost like a cheat code. Yeah. It's like when I have that in my hand, my ego slips out the door. My ego strips away from me, and I can just do it. But that translates into real life too.
Yeah. So portfolios online and on Instagram. You've been doing something lately where you're kind of like translating your website is very well curated. And now you're bringing like an element of curation to your social media account as well. Can you talk to me about how you're curating stuff on your social media in a way that kind of like mirrors the portfolio you're building online?
Yeah, well, the portfolio, I always think the website is for someone who's looking to hire me or interested in my photography. And the social media is just like an easy kind of glimpse right in. But what I really love about social media is the ability I'm doing a lot of mixed mediums right now where I'm mixing video and photos because I do both. And I love the merge of the two. I get so much jobs just because I can shoot video as well. I feel like now you kind of have to be a jack of all trades, which I don't really like. I love the hyper focus, super niche, be really good at one thing and they hire you for that kind of vibe. But the way it comes out in curation is just, is it something I love? And it's always like when I send photos to a client, I always send them an A and a B folder. And will I be happy if they choose something for the B folder? And if they do, which they've done in the past, am I proud of that work? And I always think of that when I'm posting. It's like, I always say this in my head, is this an A or is this a B? A lot of it's B. So that's why I stopped posting every day. There's no, I mean, if you look at any social media algorithm, like you need to post 35 times a day. So I don't care about that. Yeah. I care about when you go to my page and you see my work thrown at you 9 to 12 images at once. Is that the best 9 to 12 images that you can see? Because I want it to be impactful, I want it to be bold, and I don't care about just satisfying the needs of the people who struggle. I don't know if you've ever had someone look at your work with them not knowing on a Instagram how fast they fly through that shit. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
It's funny you say that. There's a whole shoot you did with flowers and 4 or 5 models, including your wife, and you made a whole Instagram kind of like slide with it, and you talk about how heartbreaking it is to like just bang through those, and then to watch the video that went into producing that, mind blowing, like hours and hours and hours of like picking out flowers and putting them up in a way that like is satisfying, and like calling on models, and just so much work, and then it's just like 1 second. Great, that's nice.
Yeah, but if you get attached to the final, the reward of it, then that can be a very toxic way to live your life. Because then if it doesn't work out well, you're sad. Yeah. If it doesn't work out as well as you wanted, you're sad. And it's also just as bad as if it works out really well, you're super happy, and now you cling on to that. You gotta wait for the next one. But I loved that process. Yeah. That 3 days of planning, 14-hour shoot day, 5 to 6 days of retouching, 2 extra days to make the videos, another day to make the Instagram. I love it. I love that shit. If I don't have anything to do that day, and I can just listen to a podcast and work on my computer and be in it, moving it. Like, I love that stuff. Yeah, I was with a photographer friend last night. The post I did today, and I was showing him, and there's like, my wife is reading this poem, and I shot it on Super 8, and it was like beautiful. to see him scroll through it and you hear, but the first syllable out of the mouth, and he swipes to the next one. I was like, you asked to see this. You asked to see this, and he just whipped right past it.
Right.
But I don't care, it's still love making.
Yeah, the process is more fulfilling.
It is. It's all about the process, and that's what my video is going to be about next week, the process. Falling in love with the process. Please stay tuned for next week. I got a great new video dropping with a big project. I've been working on it for a few weeks now, and I'm excited to share it. But thank you very much for watching. Again, if you have any questions or you want to listen to the rest of the podcast, just leave me a comment below and I'll make sure to get that in front of you. Thank you very much for watching. Happy shooting.